Great. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Francisco Servent. So glad you're here today. I am the founder and CEO at Keystone Law Firm. And what we're going to cover today is something kind of a little bit, what not everybody really wants to talk about. I'm the guy that has to talk about the things nobody wants to talk about. And in this case today, we're going to talk about your will. So don't hold it against me. This is one of those things that as I've learned more and more and more and more about how this affects families after a loved one has passed away, the more I can do to get this information into your hands, the better. So take this, use it. Your will is an important part of your life because you're going to leave behind something. And this is part of what it is. So I want you to know what these pieces of the puzzle are, because I'm going to be sharing, and you're going to do that because you're going to learn these 10 key questions that you need to ask so you don't get it wrong when you're ready to step in and do this project, okay? Now, I know not everybody who's watching this knows me already, so I just want to give you a little bit of my background. I've been doing this for about 15 years. We've helped thousands of families do this, and this is my own family right here. Anywhere I can, I'm going to brag about them. My wife, Nicole, on the far outside, Isabella and Gabriel, who are twins. Yeah, they're twins. Sophia in the middle and Zach down in front. This is why I do what I do every day, right? We all, have somebody we love, somebody we care about. This for me is it. And this is why we do what we do at Keystone. I'm an estate planning and asset protection attorney. And when needed, we also do probate, unfortunately. I want you guys to be able to avoid that nightmare. So that's what you're here to learn. Our firm this is all we do at Keystone Law Firm. We just help people arrange their affairs, protect their assets, and then when needed, help family members go through the process of winding up a loved one's affairs. That's it. We don't dabble with DUIs and family law, divorce and bankruptcy, nothing. We just do this. So we are really good at it. And our firm haven't updated these numbers recently, but last time I checked, we were almost at $800 million of our clients' assets that have been protected. And that's exciting because that's money that's just going to go that you earned, that you worked hard for, that you saved. And that's going to go where you want. It's not going to go to the government. It's not going to go to the probate system. It's not going to go to lawyers who are happy to fight over your money. It's going to go to your beneficiaries. Author of 2 books, and those 2 books are one's on the estate planning side. The other one is on probate. You're welcome to jump over to Amazon and grab those. They are up there. Really proud of my team for helping me get those done over the last few years. I do have to give everyone a little disclaimer though, because here in the legal world as a lawyer, I have to stay in compliance with all the state bar rules. And one of those rules is that you have to know this is general information of an educational nature. This is not legal advice. This is educational. I hope you use this, but don't take action on it unless, especially if you need personal legal advice. If you need to know exactly what you should do, then that's when you need to talk to a lawyer. But use this. This information is available. I've distilled it so that you can understand and learn, so you don't have to be confused as you go about protecting your family. Now, before I dig into the content, I want to share one more thing about myself. My undergraduate degree is in engineering. When I first went in and started working at a law firm, the very first law firm I worked at, I had all these suspicions of what lawyers were really like. And, we all kind of sort of have an idea of what those lawyers are like. And it just killed me because I started working for them and realized, oh my gosh, these lawyers are exactly like that. And so I jumped ship and I said, no, we got to do something better. So that's when Keystone started all those years ago. The foundation of everything that I'm teaching you is really to help you do the best job you can for your family. Okay, your family is here and you care for them. You want to make sure that you don't leave behind a mess. like we've seen happen too many times. We had one of the most recent examples was a mom who had a really simple situation. Totally, I mean, she's single, had two adult kids. Both of her kids were responsible and got along. They got along well. When she passed away, she had a old will in place. It was probably 15 years old by the time she died. And when she passed away and her kids went to go through the process of winding up her affairs, found out that a will has to go through probate. And that in and of itself is what launched World War III in that family. It essentially, both sides of the family lawyered up. One of the lawyers started making accusations, drove a huge wedge in between that brother and that sister. And it was totally avoidable, totally unnecessary. Ended up with tons of money going to the lawyers and the kids getting the rest. As I see that time and time again, I want more people to know what this information is. So take this and do something with it. Before we dig into it, before you create your will, there's 10 questions you need to know the answer to. And it really all depends on what your situation is. There's no question, right, that a super simple situation is going to need something very basic and simple. And the more complex it is, the better the tools are that are going to be needed. You know, we do plans for all kinds of families on all ends of the spectrum. And, you know, when I'm sitting down with somebody who was like my abuelita, my own grandma, you know, she didn't own real estate. She didn't have any money really. She just had her stuff in her apartment. You know, when I'm sitting down with somebody like that, a very basic, simple plan is going to work. A will, a power of attorney, you know, those kinds of documents. When I'm sitting down with some of my clients who are more sophisticated, right? They own 30 pieces of real estate and they've got, you know, rental properties and commercial properties and different types of businesses that are going on in those entities, then we need to use different tools. And so, you know, what those are for you specifically are what you need to make sure you understand and learn. So I'm going to go through what some of those tools are, but that's what an attorney who's done this thousands of times is good at helping you, like as a shortcut, right? So you could learn it all yourself, or you could take the shortcut of working with someone who's done it 1,000 times. The first tool is your will. This kind of is the traditional backbone of all of it, okay? This says in a legally allowable way where your stuff goes when you die, okay? That's really the crux of it. If you have minor kids, it'll say one other thing. It'll say who you would want to raise your kids, okay, if you have little kids. But your will is there just to deal with your stuff, your personal stuff, you know, like clothes, furniture, stuff inside your house, as well as the bigger items, your house, your car, your bank accounts, your investments, everything. And it can deal with all of that, but it doesn't automatically deal with all of that, but it can. So it is there to say what those wishes are. But a will, the key thing you need to know about a will is that for it to be used when you're gone, it must be filed in probate. That was what surprised this family, the brother sister that came to me after their mom died. You know, they got along well and they said, you know, okay, we got to figure out what to do. One of the banks is telling me we need something called a letters testamentary. What is that? That's where we take the will, we file it in court, start a probate case, and the judge gives a letter testamentary, basically saying the will is valid. A will must go through that probate process. So it's a foundation. It's a traditional way to do it. In Arizona, it's one of the most complicated and expensive ways to do it. So we actually typically recommend a trust if you own anything more than $10,000 worth of stuff. So if you own real estate, if you own a car, if you have savings in the bank, or even life insurance that's going to pay out at death, if it's more than $10,000, my advice is almost always going to be to set up a living trust. It's no more complicated to set up. It's no more expensive even to set up. It's just a better tool. And so generally speaking, that's what I would recommend. A trust, all it is it's in effect today when you set it up and it says, hey, this is effective today while I'm here. And here's how I want my stuff managed over the next few chapters of my life, right? So while I'm alive and well, nobody gets to do anything. It's me and me only. This is my trust. I'm in charge, and that's it. End of story. The next stage is if I become disabled, right? If I become incapacitated. In that stage, it'll say, well, here's who I designate to be in charge of my things while I'm alive, and I need someone to do that for me. The trust will pick up that stage of life. And then it also says what happens after you pass away, who's in charge and where things go. During that time when you're alive, well, you can make as many changes as you want. There's no restrictions. And it is the preferred tool, especially here in Arizona. Our laws are pretty strict about how that stuff gets managed. So I recommend that you consider using a trust instead of a will if you have any assets, anything more than $10,000. The probate process is here to deal with two scenarios, okay? If you don't have that first stage while we're alive and well, the moment you've either been declared incapacitated or it's suspected or whatever, that first moment while we're still alive is when probate first can get involved. And that's called a guardianship and a conservatorship, okay? The second stage of probate is after death, where that's kind of the typical probate where we all hear about, you read about that kind of stuff. The probate during life is the one, in my opinion, that's way, way worse. It is a nightmare. I mean, it's a nightmare. We had one guy who he was minding his own business, right? Trucking along his life, lived in a little manufactured mobile home on a lot in Mesa, right on a golf course. Finally, 10 years or 15 years earlier, scraped up enough money to buy a little mobile home on a golf course, retired, single. He never was married, had no kids. And he's like, sweet, I get to just play golf the rest of my life. This is wonderful. He's trucking along every day, out playing golf, having lunch at the club with his friends. And I mean, not a complicated situation, very simple. All of a sudden, he gets something handed to him at the door that looks like a lawsuit. It's this big stack of legal documents, and it says somebody suspects that you're being taken advantage of. There's a court hearing tomorrow to determine if the judge should freeze all your assets. That was a complete surprise to him. This was a bank who triggered this whole thing. A bank. Nobody's under control of what the bank does. He then was dragged through the mud all the way until he died about a year later, fighting and battling against the court system to get access back to his money, his finances, and his life. They basically froze all of his accounts, appointed a guardian and a conservator over everything, and on a temporary basis, and never even got to a final conclusion because he ended up dying. At the end of that process, which was only about a year, do you know how much the fees were that were paid to the attorneys, to the fiduciary, to the court, to the whole probate system? It's almost $150,000. And this guy's total net worth, his total earthly possessions, were only this mobile home and about $200,000 in his IRA. That's it. That's the probate system while we're alive, if you don't have your affairs in order. Okay, so the tools that we're talking about today are what you need to know about. Some kinds of trusts are very unique and critical for the purpose that they're built. So they're very special, right? In this circumstance, I want to tell you guys about two different kinds. The first one is if you have minor kids, and the second one is if you have special needs kids. If you have minor kids, you do not want any chunk of money landing in their lap when they're 18 years old, because that's exactly what the court system will do if you don't have a trust in place. So every week, once a week, here at our local courthouse, the judge literally has a line of 18-year-olds whose parents had died, or somebody had died and left them an inheritance while they were under 18. Up until they're 18, it stays locked up in a court-controlled account. On their 18th birthday, they get to go into court and say, give me my money, judge. And the judge has no choice, has to literally sign over all these checks. And it's a nightmare, right? Because you can just imagine what would be a great slimy, but great technique if you wanted to sell luxury cars. Let's just go hang outside of that courtroom every week and then start handing out business cards, right? I mean, these kids are going to buy a luxury car in that next weekend as soon as they get a chance to. The California Car Dealers Association did a study that found the average time between when an inheritance check is received and the first luxury car, their first luxury car is purchased, is only 9 days. So yes, that would be a very slimy but effective strategy if you wanted to sell luxury cars. So you need a trust to hold it beyond their 18th birthday, okay? And then you get to choose how that gets distributed afterwards. The second kind of special trust is for special needs. If they're disabled or if they have special needs benefits, there's a ton of benefits for special needs people. And if you dump an inheritance in their lap, it can disqualify them from all of those. So you don't want to do that. A special needs trust can give them their inheritance without losing all those benefits. The other main document is a power of attorney. A power of attorney is a really important document because it's where you designate someone to deal with all the financial things in life if you become incapacitated. Okay, your power of attorney is there for them to step in and do that. Now, it is there as a supplement to also help your trustee, and you might even name the same person, but they're two separate documents. They deal with the same time period if you're incapacitated, but then they might deal with different bank accounts or assets. And that's, we go into more details about that later. We just don't have the time, but that's for incapacity for your chosen person to be able to step in and manage your accounts. Not like that one guy who got dragged through the court, right? If he would have had that power of attorney in place, he would have been able to have somebody like take care of all that for him and said, no, thank you. I don't need the court's help. The other power of attorney documents are for healthcare purposes, okay? Healthcare is your medical, right? What doctor you go see, what hospitals you go to, what procedures you get, what medications you take, even whether you live at home if your health is starting to slowly decline, or whether they have to move you into a nursing home or some type of facility. So that goes into healthcare power of attorney. And then you also have another healthcare document that is your living will. And in the living will, it'll say what your end of life wishes are. Okay, those are just the documents. I want to make sure you know what those are. And as you have questions as we go through this, I'm going to try to make sure we save a little bit of time at the end. So just start dropping questions in the chat box here in the Zoom call. And I'm happy to get through as many of those as I can at the end. The first question, so if you have minor kids, you need to know this. If you don't, if your kids are grown and gone, then you better learn the answer to this because they might be in the stage of life where they're having kids or they're going to soon have their own kids. You've got to designate who's going to raise those kids if something happens. My wife and I, we go out on date night, right? My wife and I, we try to have a good pattern of doing that because we know our kids are going to be moved out at some point and we want to still like each other when they're gone. So we try to continue to nurture our marriage. But we're gone together, me and her, in the same car. And guess what? There are about 3 people every day in the state of Arizona that die in car accidents. What's going to happen if I don't have my documents in place and that happens to us? God forbid, right? What if that happens? Walk this through just step by step by step. You don't come home. It's 10 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock, it's 12 o'clock. If there's a babysitter, the babysitter's going to all of a sudden be like, wait a minute, this is not right. Something's not right. They're going to start calling and texting you. You won't answer. The police, the fire department, right? Emergency personnel, at some point, they're going to find your driver's license with hopefully your current address on it. Maybe your phone will have the ICE contact that they can call without knowing your password. And they're going to send someone to the house. They're going to try to call your ICE contact. They send someone to the house. What are they going to find? If they find minor kids there, they need to also find the legal documents that say where the kids can go. Otherwise, do you know what they're required to do? They're required to bring CPS, social workers, into the picture. And they'll do the best they can with the resources they have to try to find those legal documents, find somebody who's got legal authority. But if they can't find that, it's their own discretion. And is that what you want to rely on? No, it's their own discretion whether they choose to leave your kids with a family member or not. They're not leaving them with friends, whether they leave them with a family member or not. So you want to make sure that you've got that legal document in place. The second piece is the temporary guardian, still for little kids. Okay. So you've named the permanent person. You finally made that hard decision of, okay, this would be the person that's going to raise our kids. Okay. Well, what if you pass away and that person is just temporarily unavailable? They're out of town, they're on vacation, whatever. You don't want them to go to CPS until they come back in town, right? No. So you want a list of temporary people that the kids you're okay with. You're like, they can go stay at this house for the weekend or that house for the weekend or with their friends or with a family, like whatever. But as soon as the permanent person comes in, they get him permanently. This is that piece. Who's going to be the temporary guardian? Then if your child or grandchildren have special needs, are their needs going to be met? You've got to plan for that. We have a lot of clients with kids or grandkids that have special needs. And the first time you finally get all their benefits arranged and set up and going, a few months later, it feels kind of like a miracle just happened because generally speaking, you see a lot of improvement. The last thing you want is an inheritance to strip all that away and it have to be started over again. So you want to make sure their needs are going to be met from their benefits, but then also from their care, right? Who's going to be in charge of that care? Where are they going to live? Who's going to be responsible for providing all of that? There is unique circumstances that you have to make sure are covered. And then your assets, right? How are those going to be distributed? I know that this can sometimes, I've talked with so many clients about this. It's either clients know it immediately. They're like, oh, it's going to go like this. Like, it's going to my spouse first and then the kids equally, like easy breezy, right? No other choice. Or, a piece to charity, this, like, it's just very clear. The other side, and it's maybe a third of our clients have some confusion about it. It's like, I don't know, should I do this? Should I do that? I'm confused. Let me help you simplify this. Okay. First thing is think of everything as going through one funnel, not, where does the house go? Where does the life insurance go? Where does the retirement account go? Just nobody wants, that's not always true, but in most cases, nobody wants the house, right? They want to sell the house after you're gone and they want the cash. So that's what they do with almost everything. They're going to liquidate it and then it's going to go through the funnel. Think of that as your plan, okay? First, simplify it like that. Then the second thing is, now that it's all there, don't think of what's going to happen in 20 years. That's not helpful, okay? I guarantee whatever you guess or whatever you try to predict will happen in 20 years, you're not going to be right. If you were that good, you'd be a billionaire, okay? None of us are that good. We don't know what life is going to be like in 20 years. You need to make that decision based on today. Assuming I went today, as hard as that is to think, if I dropped over right now, what would I want? Oh, well, that makes it easy. It would be this, this, and this. Okay, let's just get that down in writing because that's better than nothing. And then all we do is we come back a year later, we ask the question again. Okay, now we know life is like this. It's a little bit different than it was last year. Are we still good with that plan? Or what would you want if you went that day? And we just make a little tweak or we leave it the same. That's how you do this without being overwhelmed by confusion. I hope that's helpful. Fifth question is, if you have minor kids or you have grandkids that are minors, when do you want them to receive the inheritance? At what age, right? Do you want them to get it at 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, 60, 70? And then second, I would just ask you, why is that the magic number for you? You know, is there some magic gene that turns on at that age? Ha ha ha, right? There's not. So how would you, instead of when, at what age, maybe you think of milestones, or maybe you think of really what are the things in their life that you would want to contribute towards if you were still here. That's a much more appropriate way to leave that, because it's still part of you. You know, it's still your gift to them. Would you want it used for a special purpose? Would you want it used for at a special time in their life? So just think through some of those things when it's a minor kid. You don't want a pile of cash slid across the table when they're 18 years old. I tried to find a picture of a lot more cash than that going from hand to hand, and all I could find was a thing of pennies, which doesn't quite fit, but it's close enough. Question 6, who's going to supervise all that stuff, right? When we pass away, we need to have somebody designated that we trust to carry out our orders. They're the captain in charge, right? We got to appoint that person to carry out those orders. Who's going to do that? Got to have someone. Again, you're not trying to name the person that'll fit 20 years from now. You're trying to name the person that, oh my gosh, if I went today, who would that be in my life? And if you truly don't have someone, then counsel, like get counsel, because there are professionals that do this and they do a great job, and they don't have to be super expensive. They're reasonable. They get paid, obviously, but it's worth getting the job done correctly. Life insurance is always a question that I want to make sure is being addressed, because so many people forget two aspects of it. How much do I need? And then when do I no longer need it, right? So as someone I'm actively supporting my family, right? I'm a financial breadwinner. If I were to go, my family's income would drop. I have a need for life insurance. You know, if you're supporting your kids through college, through that stage of adulthood, you know, you're providing some financial support, you might consider you still have a need for life insurance. If you are not financially supporting anybody, then you really should ask yourself, do I need to spend this premium on this life insurance? There may be reasons to still do that, yes, but you just need to ask that question and consider the answers, okay? Don't just do it just because you've always been doing it. And then question 8 is, what about the executor? So the prior question was that whole financial question, and this one is just the executor. So whereas your trust carries on your whole life, goes from now, after you become incapacitated and after you pass away, your trust goes through all of that. While you're alive and well, your power of attorney may kick in if you become incapacitated, and after death, it's your will. So you may look at naming an executor as well. And then question number 9. Hey, I have to put a plug in here for us, of course. Not everybody needs to work with an attorney. I'm not going to say that. There are some people out there that, you know, they've been in some professional industry, that they've got the time, the energy, the desire to go learn and research this stuff on their own and do a great job for their family. Okay, hands down, no questions asked. But there are some people who are just like, you know what, I don't want to figure it out. I just want this done right. I want somebody that I can understand and that I feel like I believe they're going to be here when my family needs me. That's when you work with an attorney. One of our firm's key things that I believe in from a foundation and why we started Keystone was that we are going to be here when you're not. And between now and then, I promise my clients, okay, I don't want you disappearing on me. I don't want you going 5, 10 years without connecting with us, because So our firm has a probate department. All they do is probates. In Arizona, there's 15,000 probates filed every year. 15,000. There's only about 60,000 people who die. So about a quarter of the people who die, there's that many probates. Okay, it's way too many. You know what a lot of those are from? It's from people who did something 5 or 10 years ago, but didn't keep it up to date. Our firm, we chase you down because we want you to keep it up to date, and we don't want it getting out of date. We don't want your family going through a nightmare. So if you want to work with somebody who does that, that's what we do. I'll explain a little bit more about how to get started here before we finish up. Question 10, how frequently do we need to update the documents? This is a big one that I'm in this never-ending battle with my industry because I just don't think the standards have been set appropriately. They just haven't. Number one, the laws suck. Pure and simple. How often do your documents need to be updated? None of the laws tell us. They just don't. There's no law that says you need to update your will or your trust every year, every 5 years, every 10 years. Nope. Anybody who tells you otherwise, they're just completely misinformed. There's no law. All there is every single bank, real estate company, financial advisor, annuity company, life insurance company, title company, all these other places that are going to deal with and interact with your stuff after you're gone. And all of them get to set their own policies on how often, how old is too old. This is a discovery I made after banging my head against a wall, trying to figure out how often does this really need to happen? Wells Fargo said every 30 days. Bank of America was every 90 days. Charles Schwab was every 30 days. Chase Bank was every 30 days. But then I called a different branch of each one and I got different answers from all the different branches. So I was about to just like say, I throw my hands up, I can't even do this. That wasn't good enough. So we decided, you know what, that's not the answer. There's a better way. And so we decided to just try doing it a checkup once a year. Let's see what happens if we do a checkup once a year, make sure everything's up to date. And we, as the attorney, we certify everything's in order, and it's worked. So we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients who have us do that annual checkup. And so far, none of them have been dragged through the mess. 100% of their plans have worked as intended, right? No probate, no, whether somebody's happy or unhappy, I can't control that. My client's wishes are my client's wishes, but their plans have been carried through as they intended. That's been cool. So we recommend once a year having that checkup done. I also want to encourage, to the extent it makes sense in your family situation, for you to share your wishes with them. This is something that causes a lot of stress after somebody passes away if their documents haven't been shared, right? And if it's something other than the very traditional, equally to everybody kind of a thing. If it's not, everyone gets an equal share. I highly recommend you share this ahead of time. It's the reason that people don't is because they don't want their family or whoever it is to be mad at them, which I understand. Here's the problem with that. I have a moral problem with that. We are giving them a time bomb if we do that. And that's the choice we're making, because it's going to blow up. It's like hot potato. It's going to land in their lap and it's going to explode in their face. It is so much healthier. And if we're strong enough to make the decision to say, here's what I want, we need to be strong enough to say, here's what I want, and don't mess with this after I'm gone. Because we get hired after the fact by lots of family members, not our own clients who did their estate plans, but by people just coming in off the street. that said, oh my gosh, somebody showed me my mom's will, and it says everything is just going to this one step kid. What the heck, And the documents are valid, the documents are legal, and now this one child or multiple children are written out and didn't even know it. I encourage you to share your wishes. As hard as it is, it's our job to be the strong leader of our family and to to be transparent about that. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. We will never do that, right? We won't disclose your wishes. It's up to you, but I encourage you to do that. So go ahead and if you have any chat questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat box here. I'm going to go through how clients become clients of Keystone Law Firm and the way we do that while I'm waiting for some chats to come in. The first thing we do is called a discovery call. It's really no pressure. It's really pretty simple. It's just a free phone call that has a ton of value, right? It's 15 minutes. Private appointment by phone for you to share your issues, your goals, and learn your options, right? You get clarity, no longer confused about what do I need to do, right? Get clarity about what the next step is. There's, a lot of times when we want to get something big done, we don't even start on it because we know it's got 43 steps and I only know what step number 1 is. And I'm confused about what steps 5 through 25 are. Well, the way this actually works better is you will learn what step 2 is when you take step 1. So what we do is we give you that next step, and then we bundle up in that next step okay, let's talk about what your options are. Okay, let's take the next step. And even though we break it down into very concise, easy to, consume steps, you can get it all done in 6 or 8 weeks, the whole thing. It's very, very simple. But the first step is a discovery call. That's where you get clarity about what the next step is. And tons of value packed in there. Even though it's only 15 minutes, right? You get a lot of clarity in that phone call. Understand what the issues are that you actually need to be concerned about. Understand what the goals are that your family has. Make sure those are clear so that the options can be presented to you. And then with everybody who schedules a discovery call, we also give my 17-page Lawyer's Estate Planning Secret Guidebook that I wrote years ago. And I still get awesome feedback on it saying, oh my gosh, that was great. Finally, something makes sense. My 17-page guidebook, and then a copy of my book, Pack Your Parachute, which goes through all kinds of other stories, examples, documents, and tools that every family needs to consider. Tons of value in there. And we've done this so many times, that we've got lots of great reviews online. Our clients are so wonderful about sharing their experience. You can go look us up and see all of those on Google, on Facebook, wherever else people post reviews, and make sure, you know who we are before you even take that first step if you want. But if you're ready to take that first step, I want you to know there is no cost for it. It is completely free. And, with all of our services, every single thing that we do, we give 100% satisfaction guarantee. So you get to hold, the strings, march through the process, go through the whole thing. And if at the end of it, if it wasn't worth it, give us a chance to make it right. And if we can't make it right to your satisfaction, you get a refund. So how do you get started? The easiest way, honestly, is to just jump on our scheduler here online. This is the URL. I'll post it here in the chat box here in just a second. And that is where you can just go find a time that works for you and your family. And then bam, you're ready to go. So let me post this here for you in the chat box, and you can click on that, schedule your first free appointment, and see what your options are. That is it. That is all I had for today. I don't see any questions coming through on the chat, which is perfectly fine. If you have them, you're welcome to just save those questions and bring them to your appointment. If you're not quite ready, don't feel quite ready, because, something, maybe you're about to go out of town. Maybe you've got, other things that are just busy weighing on your mind. My recommendation is jump on the scheduler and see if you can find something that's after this stuff would calm down, right? Like, I'll be done with this stuff in a couple of weeks. Schedule it for after then. The way it's on the schedule and you're starting to get things rolling, right? You get to there and you can attend. Do you need your spouse's, cooperation to schedule the appointment? Not to schedule, and not necessarily even to attend this first one. And the following appointments, most definitely, because if you are going to be planning together, you both need to participate. So you can just find a time and schedule it and say, hey, honey, I scheduled us an appointment. It's free. I'm going to talk about blah, blah, blah. Great. If you feel like your situation is really simple, you're like, Francisco, I don't need a lawyer. I don't need a law firm for this. It's super simple. Can't I just go get a form or something? Like I said, while we were talking about this, if you want to learn about this, you can. The information is all out there. I'm not a rocket scientist. I learned this stuff. I've just done it 1,000 times, so I can give you a shortcut if you want one. That's all, okay? So go learn, seek, you shall learn, right? If you have a super simple situation, we do have very simple packages that are very budget friendly and let you use some of what we can give you as leverage, right? Use our experience to make it simple for you. I get the question a lot, how hard is it to change things once it's set up? So with our clients, it's really, really, really simple. Once you're in the system, it's basically a phone call. Hey, Keystone, I want to change this to that. Okay, hang on a minute. Let me have you talk to so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. Can you come down next Thursday at 1 o'clock and sign the change? That's just it. I mean, once you're in the system, making changes is really easy, and it doesn't need to be expensive. It doesn't need to be complicated. That's why I recommend you get something done now and just make the changes as life happens, or even as your mind thinks about it more. Just, oh, I want to make that change. Call us and say, let's make a change. And then we always get the question, what are the prices and how much is it going to cost? Our firm does all of this on flat fees. And it goes anywhere from about $350 for a very do-it-yourself, what we call our masterclass kit, all the way up to very expensive plans, very sophisticated plans. Our top-end flat fee package is about $8,000. We've got a $1,500, a $3,000, a $5,000, about an $8,000 package. If it's more complex, we do still work under flat fees. We would just provide a custom quote for that. And so those are our standard packages. Your job is to learn what the differences are and then make a choice that fits your family, that fits you. So we have options for lots of different budgets, all right? All right, that is all I've got. Thank you for sticking around, everybody. I will be available for questions for a couple more minutes, but I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.